How's it going, everyone? Welcome to another exciting bout of movie Battleground. We got two fantastic competitors today. This is going to be a fun match. My name is Richard Schwartz, Mr. Carefree. I am your lovely host this evening. I am not alone today, but we're going to get to the competitors first, and then we'll get to our judges.
Hello, everybody out there in Full Metal Land. This is Ryan O'Regan.
So, I'm going up against Ryan.
Straight from the state of New Jersey, in the shadow of Edison, the birthplace of cinema.
We're gonna have a little bit of a debate, but it's not really gonna be a debate.
But Battleground being a completely different animal, I like that. I like trying something new.
I think I know my shit when it comes to movies. I know how to discuss movies. I know that my options that I have picked are stronger choices.
Well, us here in the Tri-State, we know how to talk. However we want to go ahead and get our message across, we do that. That my competitor is also a first-timer, Joe Harrison.
And that I can talk my way around Ryan before he even gets a chance to really even formulate what his ideas have. I will have clearly won the judges over, and it was just going to be a walk in the park for me.
Sure. Good luck to you, man. Break a leg, do what you gotta do. I can respect that. However, you are currently my competition. You are the guy I have to go up against. You are the guy I have to prove myself against.
So with that being said, Ryan, I'm sorry I gotta do this to you.
So, while I have much respect for what you're doing in your young endeavors, I do have to make you go sleep with the fishes.
But at the end of the day, only one of us can win, and it's gonna be me.
We got two competitors, very confident in their ways. But also, these two are not alone. We needed some judges. I am your host and one of the judges, but we have two other lovely judges today. Let's start off with Ryan Permisson. How are you doing today? How do you feel about this match?
I'm doing well, sir. Thank you very much for having me. It's been a long time since I've been able to sit in the judges' chair, so this is going to be a lot of fun. These two competitors are new to this sort of league, so this is going to be very interesting to see who is going to come out the victor, but I am happy to be here, so thanks for having me.
All right. And our other judge is the comic book... No, he is Mr. Grant Gregory. I almost got your nickname confused. Grant, how are you doing?
No, really excited to be here. This will be my third time judging, and it's, I've had one match myself, so really enjoying this format. So I'm looking forward to seeing what these two guys can bring.
All right, the judges are ready. The competitors, I believe, are ready. So before we get to the first question, let's tell you guys, if you're new to this, how this works. There will be 3 questions. Each question will have a 90-second opening, a 5 minutes where they duke it out, and a minute closing. So it's pretty simple with that. And after when they do their spiel, the judges will decide who deserves to win each of those questions, who they thought were the stronger argument. So with that out of the way, let's start off with the first question. The first question was, what is the worst superhero movie, sequel, or spin-off? And let's start off with Average Joe Pearson this round. You have 90 seconds for your opening, whenever you are ready.
So I picked Batman and Robin. As many people know, is what even George Clooney himself said that it killed Batman when it came out. It's just, as much as even people try to save it by saying it's fun and it's campy, it is a disservice to Batman as a character, to Robin as a character, to Mr. Freeze as a character, to Bane as a character, to Poison Ivy as a character, and to Alfred as a character, and to Batgirl as a character. Every single character that is shown in this movie, it does a disservice to them and makes it almost to where if you don't have a comic book background and we're coming into this movie, you would think that these Batman comics are just campy and almost too cheesy. So it really is. So that's kind of where I'm saying that it's the worst, is because it came off of 2 amazing Tim Burton films, 1989's Batman and then 1991's Batman Returns, and a decent sequel in Batman Forever. And then just to follow up those 3 movies with this, just completely what had been set up in the 3 movies before was kind of pushed up. The camp was pushed up to
20
11.
seconds.
Was pushed up to 11, and it made it almost to where it was like watching a Batman parody movie as opposed to watching an actual Batman movie. And that's why I consider it to be the worst comic book sequel movie.
All right, with 5 seconds to spare. Okay, Ryan, you have 1:30, and you can start whenever you are ready.
While I can't deny that Joe's argument about Batman and Robin being the least of the 4 Batman movies, at least you can say that it was something that went along with what had predecessed it. My movie is 2005's Elektra, a movie that should have never even happened. All right? They took a minor character from a mediocre Daredevil movie and decided, oh, well, it's Jennifer Gardner. She's sexy enough. Let's go ahead and give her a film. And it was just slow pace. It ruined Jennifer Gardner as a leading lady. It ruined female-driven comic book movies for at least a decade. And ultimately, it is just slow. You know how many times I had to watch this damn thing in order to prepare for this movie? Twice, because I fell asleep the first time. And I had to leave my eyes open like this for the second one. All right? That is how much of a groan this movie is. At least you can say Batman and Robin was entertaining, but this thing was a slog. It did so much disservice to the actual character that it took us until Daredevil's live-action television show on Netflix in order to get Elektra right. And even then, people still criticized it. It may just be a character that you can't necessarily do, but certainly trying to do it, especially down in 2005 with all the mess that they had from X-Men and Spider-Man at that point, it's annoying and it's a headache.
Okay. It's a very strong start. Let me just get the timer ready for the next round. And now they will have 5 minutes to duke it out. So the timer will start whenever someone starts speaking.
So while I do agree with you that it can be slow at times, Elektra, I think that at least doing a disservice to a minor character is not as huge as a downfall and a pitfall as to being a big disservice to one of the seminal characters of DC, and then not just to him, but to his rogues gallery and to characters that other people had enjoyed along with the same time. Because while yes, it does a disservice to one character, Batman and Robin disservices Batman, Robin, Batgirl, Poison Ivy, Alfred, Bane, and Mr. Freeze. It disservices 7 characters that people have loved and are cherished, and it destroys them and makes them almost caricatures and parodies of themselves. And with Elektra being slow, that's fine. Movies can be slow, but this movie...
Not if they're an action movie, where especially coming off of a Marvel action movie, all right? And for one thing, she's supposed to be just a martial artist, so I would expect a lot more from the martial arts action that comes in that movie. She barely does anything of any note. Can you remember actually any one particular fight from the movie? At least with Batman and Robin, there are some memorable moments. Yes, it may be campy, but it is still memorable. In fact, it was still the most profitable movie of that year, of 1997, the highest grossing. So you can't really say it was even a flop.
Being profitable doesn't necessarily mean it's good. We see that even in a lot of days.
It is when it comes to early comic book movies, especially for Batman, all right? The whole reason behind the campiness of Batman is to sell toys, because that was big for the 90s. And they certainly did that. And plus, you can't even say that it was that bad of a sequel, because it was coming off of Batman and Forever. It basically stuck with the Schumacher style that was established in that film. So at least it's taking that kind of feel, that kind of continuity. While it may be different from Burton's, it was at least sticking with the norm. And that's what made it work to that kind of point for Warner Brothers. As far as critically, yeah, okay, it did suck. But it sucked a lot less than Elektra did by the critics. It may have ruined Batman for a little while, and even then, there was still the campy Batman that people could say this was a form of Batman. I had an Elektra that was no form of anybody.
However, with Elektra not being a form of anybody, that's still like not as bad because, as you were saying, she's a minor character that was a spinoff from an even mediocre movie. So absolutely, you can't really say it's the worst when we saw
the movie should have had her own solo film. All right, I would have been happier if like Stick got his own film or something, or do something with Bullseye. But for Elektra, they did this disservice to a female character, which if they had done it right, could have opened many doors, but it took us 10 years to get like a proper female-driven superhero film in Wonder Woman. It wasn't even a Marvel brand. And Jennifer Garner aside, they did nothing for her career. The last good movie I saw her in was like that Christian conservative one about how her son survived the fall from the tree. What was the thing you saw her in between Elektra?
2-minute warning.
And to say that it was just Elektra that got messed up, Typhoid Mary got messed up pretty bad in that movie too. I mean, you're talking about a woman who could have easily rivaled Elektra, and all she did was have a poison kiss in the film. Again, Daredevil the live action did it so much better.
However, as I was saying before, with Daredevil, we could have seen Elektra coming because of how poor Daredevil already was. Now, as much as you can say about Batman Forever and established it, no one could really expect that. We saw that it was campy and stuff with Batman Forever, but then with Batman and Robin to just crank that up and disservice almost 10 characters and make it to where you didn't even care about any of them. I didn't care about Alfred's disease that he had.
That was the saddest he ever was. Yes, mind you, Batgirl shouldn't be his niece or whatever, but oh my God, I felt for Alfred.
I mean,
he was like the long-standing person.
I think what makes it so bad is how it tries to do so much and it just fails on all parts and it becomes a parody of itself. But Elektra is just a spin-off to an already mediocre movie that really wasn't even enjoyed as much. So you really can't fault them for making a bad spin-off to an already bad movie when Batman Forever was at least a decent movie that you could say, all right, maybe they can do a little bit better with the next one. But when you see Daredevil and then see Elektra as its spin-off, you can kind of say, all right, it's just Daredevil Redux. And they just tried to follow the same steps, but couldn't hit them.
But it took them this long to actually do a proper Daredevil, and even then it was on television. You can easily say that with as bad as Batman and Robin was, even though it did well profitably, and that's what saved it from anything else, if it wasn't for as bad as Batman and Robin was, we never would have gotten Christopher Nolan's Batman series as a remake and a redo of the character itself.
And that is time. All right. Now each competitor will now have 1 minute for their closing. So, Joe, you have 1 minute whenever you are ready. Start speaking for your closing.
So, yes, Christopher Nolan was able to come in 8 years later and maybe fix Batman, but the same thing can be said with Elektra was fixed in the series. Well, it's a small screen, but as I was saying before, that disservicing one minor character in one of her rogues gallery is different than disservicing and as much of a less of a big deal than disservicing one of the seminal characters in DC's entire universe in his rogues galleries and multiple characters associated with them. And that's why it's so bad, is because when people talk about Batman, they skip over it. They skip over Batman and Robin because of how bad it is, and they don't really want to remember that it existed. People want to erase it from its memories, as much as cheesy and campy as it is. And it hurt Joel. It hurt everyone's career is involved with it, from Joel Schumacher to George Clooney. George Clooney even said he didn't think he was going to get work again after Batman and Robin because they thought he would kill characters.
All right. Ryan, you have 1 minute for your closing, and it starts whenever you start talking.
Yes, George Clooney has gone back on his role as Batman, but he also did say it was the biggest break he ever had. And to be frank, many of the actors from that movie have gone on to do pretty well, regardless of Batman and Robin. Uma Thurman has done very well for herself. George Clooney has done well for herself. Chris O'Donnell, he's doing great on NCIS, LA, or whichever one there is out right now. Schwarzenegger's Teflon. All right, he was damn fine to begin with. The only one I could say was suffered is Alicia Silverstone, and she wasn't even that strong to begin with. But to think of poor Jennifer Garner, to think of how she was at least coming up in the early 2000s, and the fact that she was barely anything now. And she was the sole proprietor of this film, and it probably wrecked her career unconditionally. They even tried to do more action with her in Peppermint a couple of years ago. That fell flat. Her as an action star just unfortunately does not and will not work for the foreseeable future, and it's all because of this damn butt-ass of a film that should have never been made.
Time. All right. We've heard it both competitors were battling out, had great opening, great battling, great closing, but it's time for the judges to now decide. So I'm going to start off with Ryan Permission. Permission, who do you think won this bout for this first question? And to get the first point.
Wow, what a way to kick this thing off with a great question and great arguments by both competitors. But the closing arguments were what kind of sealed the deal for me. I was going one way and I was going another way and this way. And it was kind of a bit of a seesaw during the argument portion. But I'm going to give the point to Ryan on this one for the points he made about Elektra. So point to Ryan.
All right. 1 point for Ryan so far. Earlier, one decision for Ryan. Grant, what is your decision?
I want to say it was definitely an interesting debate. I like how early on Ryan came saying that Batman was more profitable, and Joe came back real quickly saying profit doesn't necessarily mean it's a better film. The question was about a better film. I like that. I feel the problem where Joe got caught up is he kept repeating the same point by saying they've done a disservice to this without actually going into detail what that disservice was. Where I felt that where Ryan won it for me was when he said it was a slow martial arts film and she's supposed to be a martial artist and she has no memorable scenes. And I was thinking about it and I couldn't remember a scene, and I've seen that film a number of times. Ryan had the stronger of the two closing arguments, so I gave the point to Ryan.
So Ryan will get the first point. So we're on to the second question. And the second question is, which movie director deserves a second chance? And they had to choose a director that had at least 3 bad films in their last 5. No, 3 bad movies in their last 5 films. So we're going to start off with Ryan this time. Ryan, you have 90 seconds to start your opening whenever you are ready.
I can't say I know much about directors in general. All right, I'll be the first one to be honest. Directors are probably one of my weak points because unless you're someone of note, like a Spielberg or a Tarantino, it doesn't necessarily ring in my head. One that does ring in my head, and one that definitely rings within my childhood, is Joe Dante. Joe Dante being one of those people that has a very unique style, semi-comic bookish, semi-cartoonish, but always having this bit of like a horror sci-fi mashup with a sense of humor that makes it palatable for everybody. And especially with the way things are nowadays, with the kind of things that's in the horror market and the kind of thing that's in, more parodying of certain genre styles, I feel like Joe Dante is somebody that could go ahead and make a movie that would be memorable to this day, especially considering he helped inspire so many other filmmakers with their things. One need only look at Krampus, and everyone always said, oh, well, that's just Gremlins. And what's Gremlins? Gremlins is one of the biggest movies Joe Dante has ever done. Him and so many others from like that 80s style that really just have a sense of wonderment. And unfortunately, he hasn't been able to do much lately. He's been relegated to television and Netflix films. I would love to see him back on the big screen, probably now more so than ever, where his vision could be utilized.
All right. That was a good opening. And so now we're going to go to Joe. Joe, you have 90 seconds whenever you are ready.
Let me tell you about Kevin Smith. Kevin Smith is probably one of the biggest fanboys within Hollywood when it comes to filmmaking and comic books. And he had a good start with Clerks and Chasing Amy and Bill and Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. But then he started kind of falling off a little bit with Tusk and Yoga Hosers and even Cop Out. And I think we just really need to see a return to form for Kevin Smith. We've seen that a little bit with his episodes he's done with the Arrowverse shows with Flash. But I think what Hollywood really needs is to just let Kevin Smith have a chance to go back to his style and kind of, recapture what he had with Clerks and with Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. I think he has this unique style and this unique voice that he wants to share. And I think that he just needs to be able to have a vehicle to where he can truly and fully share it and let his entirety of his fanboy and his love for Hollywood and his love for filmmaking shine through. And I think if we were to give him that chance to just really go full in and just embrace who he is as a filmmaker, that we would get an amazing piece of art from him. And that's why I think we, as a society, need to give Kevin Smith a second chance.
All right. And you can see in the rest of your time?
Yep.
Okay. So Both competitors will now have 5 minutes to duke it out, and it will start whenever the first person speaks.
Now, here's the funny thing about this argument, because obviously when we were going ahead and trying to pick which directors we want to go with, at the time, I believe we both picked Kevin Smith. I'm a proud Jersey boy. I know Kevin Smith. I have seen the man in person, and I can attest that he has a great vision for film. The problem with Kevin Smith, as opposed to Joe Dante, and in regard to who needs a rehashing or a reboot of themselves, is that Kevin Smith doesn't really need one. He has been consistent with the films that he has put out ever since he started viewing away from the viewer skewerverse and started doing other projects, but he's always done them in his own style, whether it be Red State, whether it be Tusk, whether it be Yoga Hosers. I've seen the man on stage proclaim that he doesn't really care about the Hollywood machine, and he's just going to go ahead and make the films that he wanted to do. The Yoga Hosers alone was a film that he wanted to do for his daughter, and he accomplished that with as much zaniness as there is to it. So I can't really say that he really needs any kind of a fresh start, because he's just really been chugging along doing his own thing. He just may not be recognized by anyone in the big leagues, and he's never really been a big league person. He's been an indie person. Joe Dante, on the other hand, has been a big person.
Yeah, they both have been big persons. And I think Joe Dante, he even the movies that you brought up that were bad, I think he still has enjoyable films, and I don't think he really needs a second chance to really show that he's a filmmaker, because I think that whether or not his films are critically acclaimed, that they're still enjoyable. And to me, that's really what filmmaking is. As long as you make something that is enjoyable for people to take in and watch and enjoy, that's great. But the issue with the Kevin Smith, and why I think he needs a second chance to really, kick get his teeth and chomp down on a really project that he's really good at, is because his movies are becoming Cop Out, Tusk, Yoga Hosers, Red State. Those weren't really enjoyable movies to watch, and I think and to me, that's why he needs a second chance at filmmaking, is to go back to making films that are enjoyable for people to watch. I rewatch Jay and Silent Bob at least once a week, and every time I watch it, I was like, I want a second chance for him to make stuff like this again. And I mean, yes, because I'm going to get this out of the way before you bring it up. Yes, there is a Jay and Silent Bob reboot that's coming out, and hopefully that is where we see the second chance coming. But I think that's why he deserves the second chance, and that's why I think that even Hollywood is seeing that, yes, he does deserve a second chance by allowing him to go back to really what is true to form for him, which is the viewer skewerverse, and making enjoyable films that are also can show off his fanboy flavor of filmmaking. And that's why we really need to see this from him. Joe Dante, yes, yes, Gremlins, amazing film. Even some of the future stuff that you may think is bad, like Looney Tunes Back in Action, I enjoy that film. It's cheesy, but it's fun. But to me,
I mean, let's be honest. That's the only reason they made that film. It was because they were trying to capitalize on the popularity of Space Jam. And, Brendan Fraser and Jenna Elfman love them, but not good for a Who Framed Roger Rabbit wannabe kind of film. I'm talking about the films from his 80s. I'm talking about his highlights. The Howling, Twilight Zone, the movie, especially his part, It's a Good Life, with the obvious subtle tunes of cartoonage in there. Gremlins and Gremlins 2, Explorers, Inner Space, The Burbs, which I love the fucking Burbs. It's one of the best Tom Hanks movies possible. This and The Money Pit are him with comedy. But, don't nobody hate on Money Pit. They don't know it's out there, but that's a different story. But, I mean, Matinee, Small Soldiers, anything that can open up the eyes of children and adults is great. The thing with Kevin Smith's films, like I said, he's had a consistency, and he's had to rely on Jay and Silent Bob so many times. Even I like Tusk. I like Red State to an extent. 1 minute warning. Because it's him branching out. It's him doing other things, but it's him doing things that he wants to do. He's given himself that opportunity. It's not like anyone's given it to him. Whereas Joe Dante was a contract player. He was a big screen person in the big production companies, and he's kind of fallen to the wayside. A protege of Roger Corman, of all people, a lover of small independent sci-fi films. He's someone that could actually work in the industry as it is right now. With the way small budget horror has been going, he could easily play into that. Whereas Kevin Smith is going to do Kevin Smith regardless of whether or not people want to see Kevin Smith. He's going to do the damn thing regardless, and that's a great popularity thing to have with his fan base. But as for the larger audience out of the whole, it doesn't help.
But I think, as you were saying, Joe Dante is still getting these Netflix films to do. Well, a lot of people
maybe one or two at best. The last one I saw was like The Hole, and The Hole was okay, but it wasn't on parallel with any of the previous ones.
That's time. All right. That was really good. You guys, good job so far. And now, each competitor will now have a minute closing. So, Ryan, you have 1 minute for your closing argument whenever you start talking.
Okay. So, I think it's clear to see that we both kind of agree that, we have some fandom for Kevin Smith and we have some fandom for Joe Dante. These are both two directors that, we both appreciate. And I can appreciate Joe for showing that too. But the problem is the question itself, who deserves a second chance? As far as I'm concerned, Kevin Smith has been working on his chance ever since, Mallrats. He's been chugging along that same line. And yes, while the older films may be more popular with a certain demographic of age, he has been consistently doing work in some form or fashion to all the work he has done before. Joe Dante, unfortunately, he has not had the same opportunities. And mind you, while both Joe Dante and Kevin Smith have been working on television more so in their latter careers, I do believe that Joe Dante films, if he's given a chance and he's given the right scripts to allow things to fly, he can make it blow up perfectly.
Time. All right. Joe, you have 1 minute for your closing, and it begins when you start talking.
To me, a second chance really doesn't mean that you are getting more work again. To me, it's more of a chance to really show that you haven't really lost your way and that you can still do what you've been doing, which to me, and that for Kevin Smith, that is making enjoyable films. Joe Dante has consistently made enjoyable films, whether or not they are critically acclaimed. That's besides the point. He consistently gets to make enjoyable films that people, for more, whether they're critically acclaimed or not, people enjoy, and people can say, I at least like that. But Kevin Smith movies, especially in the latter part of it, people are just like, maybe Kevin Smith should stick to TV. So to me, that's really what the second chance is about, is being able to show that you still have it in you to create enjoyable content for people to consume. And that's why I think Kevin Smith really needs the second chance to just show that he didn't go away, that he is still the guy who's a fanboy, he's a lover of film, and that he will make enjoyable films that people love to watch and consume regularly.
Time. All right. That was, once again, very good arguments on both sides. And to decide who's going to get this point, we're going to start off with Grant. Grant, how do you feel about this? Who do you think deserves the point?
Okay, so couple of notes. Ryan, probably not the best idea to start off with saying you don't know much about directors and that. Just a little side note. I felt like the main crux of the argument kind of got bogged down a bit in not to who deserves a second chance, but whose filmography was better or worse. I did like the fact that Ryan said that he has been consistent in his own style and he doesn't need Hollywood. He does what he wants to do. He makes the film that he wants to make. And Joe died with the small budget horrors going really well. I had Ryan going up with that until right at the end. Joe actually defined to me what his second chance meant and why it fits. So just by the skin of his teeth, I'm giving that point to Joe.
All right. And I'm going to use my deliberation. Yeah, Ryan, like Grant says, not a good idea to say you don't know about your directors and also say that you also picked Kevin Smith. Like, you also wanted Kevin Smith. That's also nothing good. However, I'm giving my point to Ryan because Ryan did bring up the point that Kevin Smith has been very consistent with his film career. Like, he hasn't gone anywhere. Joe Dante hasn't really done too much other than that. And also, I just didn't hear enough from Joe I heard about Kevin Smith's filmography and what he did in TV, just not enough reason why Kevin Smith himself deserved the second chance. So my vote is going to go to Ryan, but we're going to get the other Ryan break this tie. Ryan, who do you think deserves this point?
No pressure, right, boys? Both competitors brought up really good arguments, but not to beat a dead horse with some of the other points that were made. At the end of the day, I'm actually going to go ahead and, based on the arguments here, I'm actually going to, was really close, but I'm actually going to give this one to Ryan. Well, it's just because that, you know, they kind of were going back and forth on the whole Kevin Smith and being consistent and all that jazz. It's like, yeah, Kevin Smith, I mean, you walk down the street and ask 10 people, 9 out of 10 are going to know who Kevin Smith is. Joe Dante, on the other hand, there's Gremlins, there's Burbs, there's a few other films maybe in there for good measure, but other than that, I don't, you know, the point was brought up. Joe Dante hasn't really done much in the last couple of years or so. So between those points, I would give it to Ryan. That's why.
Okay. So at the end of the 2 rounds so far, it is Ryan leading 2, Joe with nothing, but this can still happen. We can still get a speed round if Joe is able to get question 3. If not, Ryan will become the winner. But we're going to go to the 3rd question right now, which the 3rd question was best Clark Gable performance. And we're going to start off with Joe. Joe, you have 90 seconds for your opening statement. Whenever you are ready.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn. To me, like, every time I hear that line, and I'm actually looking at my copy of the Art of Gone with the Wind right now, if that doesn't tell you my choice, his role as the visitor and the Gone with the Wind is such a performance where he brings this gravitas and he can show that he's this leading man, and a lot of his lines. And the reason I know this is for a fact because I read it in the book, so that's my fact checking is the book about it. A lot of his performance in Gone with the Wind is just him kind of feeling the scene in the moment and reacting naturally and just responding to what his co-stars were saying. And a lot of his lines in that movie were improvised, and that's why. And to me, that's so strong with the performance is the fact that you can truly just see that it's more of him just reacting naturally and interacting with the scenery and with his co-stars and bringing this deep and rich character to a story that when I go back and revisit it, the story of Gone with the Wind, I don't really see as a great story, but Clark Gable's performance is what draws me into that movie and keeps me along with it for the entire line from when he shows up to that plantation to when he leaves. That is all I can think about is his character and how he brings to life this deep and rich character from his interactions, from his romantic chemistry and everything. It's perfect.
Time. All right. Ryan, you have 90 seconds whenever you start talking.
As far as Clark Gable being one of the biggest leading men of his era, there were certainly, like, in my research, there were certainly 3 films that probably stood out. Gone with the Wind was definitely one of them. Mutiny on the Bounty was another good one. And then there's my choice, which is It Happened One Night. The movie that saved Columbia Pictures, the movie that netted Clark Gable the Oscar, the movie that should have never been so good, but it was so good that you could argue if it wasn't for this film, Clark Gable wouldn't even have gotten into Gone with the Wind. All right? It's pretty much the original screwball comedy, you know, the kind that just, you know, men could enjoy Gable's performance. It allows him to showcase all range of emotion, from being a dick to being kind-hearted, from being sneaky to being suave. It allowed him to run the gambit. He was given carte blanche to pretty much just let it fly, in much in the same way that you could say Gone with the Wind. But the thing is, this focused so much more on Clark Gable and his female co-star, whereas Gone with the Wind was more about the epic and Vivian Leigh. It wasn't so much about Clark Gable. It Happened One Night was 100% Clark Gable all the way. And without this film, who knows where his career probably would have gone from there on out.
All right, you concede the rest of your time?
I do concede.
Okay. We got both their opening marks, Gone with the Wind versus It Happened One Night. And you guys have 5 minutes to battle it out whenever the first person starts talking.
So you say that Gone with the Wind is very much about the epic and the story. How yes, I will say that that's how it's marketed and that's how it's framed. But what Clark Gable is able to do with his role in that movie is he takes you into this whole where you are caring more about him as a character in his performance than you are the story. Yes, the epicness and the grandness of the scale of Gone with the Wind is amazing and spectacular, but the deepness and the richness and just who Clark Gable is able to play as this guy who is able to make it appear as if he doesn't care, but there's something subtle enough to where you know that deep down he truly does care. And for Clark Gable to be able to bring that into the performance, and not only that, but to truthfully and honestly interact with people, because that's what acting is. It is living truthfully in imaginary circumstances, and that is what Clark Gable is able to do in Gone with the Wind. He is believable. He makes you feel that he is this visitor, that he is visiting this antebellum South plantation, and that all of what's going on isn't just a performance, that he has deeply enveloped himself and became this character and is living through this character.
His character was a dick and a cuck. All right? Here's the thing. He didn't even want to do Gone with the Wind. They gave him $50,000 to do the film so this week he could file for divorce and marry his person that he was having, It was Carol Lombard. That's the only reason he even did the damn film. He didn't want to do the film. It reminded me too much of Parnell, which was another kind of epic that he had done before. He said it was a woman's film. He got nominated but didn't even get the award for it. He was almost going to quit because they wanted him to cry on set. And this is all stuff from the research. All right, this is all people that, went ahead and told him, you have to do this. He didn't want to do it. So at least with It Happened One Night, that was a film he almost was given as punishment. All right, he caused so much drama. They sent him to Columbia to make this film. Gone with the Wind was going to be good regardless of whether or not Clark Gable was Rhett Butler. But It Happened One Night was never supposed to have worked. It was a movie that was basically just going ahead and throwing him off and, just wasting money. Columbia was known as Poverty Row. That's where actors went to die. And this movie, just by word of mouth, just from Clark Gable's performances, not only did it make Columbia come back from the depths of hell, it helped inspire Bugs Bunny. All right? Between Clark Gable's carrot chomping and the way the character Shapley talks in the film and the mention, Fritz Freeling has gone on record as saying this inspired one of the greatest, if not the greatest, animated characters of all time. That says a lot for a comedy from all the way back then. And
however,
to go ahead,
a comedy performance inspiring a future comedy character, that can be said for a lot of comedic performances. I think actually you're saying that
that one that iconic though. That's the thing. Whereas with Gone with the Wind, I mean, what did it inspire? It inspired a lot of people to hate Rhett Butler because he basically raped Scarlett. All right, that scene is still in contention to this day. It does not exactly paint Clark Gable or Rhett Butler, the character, in the best of light. All right, for as much as he went ahead and tried to marry Scarlett, she was still thinking about Lindsay. All right, this is not the best showing for Clark Gable, the ladies' man, to be forgotten about and be the third husband in the damn film. At least he gets the woman.
However, being a ladies' man in one scene for like an actor, that doesn't mean, and even I think your point of he didn't want to do this film, that actually attests more to me saying that it is his best performance, because typically when an actor doesn't want to do a film, it reflects in his performance, but it doesn't reflect in this performance. It's an amazing performance where he is able to, and
1 minute warning.
That scene isn't who Clark Gable is, and it's not the entirety of the performance. You cannot pick one moment in a performance and gauge the entire performance off of that one moment.
To be fair, he also didn't want to do It Happened One Night. He was sent down to do that one. Technically, we're talking about two movies in which Clark Gable didn't want to do them. One is more memorable as a movie, but one pretty much made Clark Gable the star that he was. All right? And if you want to go down to like awards, he was nominated for the Oscar for Gone with the Wind, didn't win it. He was nominated for It Happened One Night, he won it. And you know what? He even went on to give the award to a little kid, as quoting to say, the winning of the statue is what matters, not owning it. All right? That in itself shows that it was about the performance that he put in, not so much about whether or not he was getting this, that, and the other thing. Whereas Gone with the Wind, it almost like you could say, oh, he was just in it for the money.
Time. All right. We are going to give... Oh, give me a sec. Gotta get to the time. All right. Each competitor will now have 1 minute for their closing argument. Joe, your 1 minute starts whenever you start talking for your closing. All right. We had great arguments from back and forth from both competitors. Now it's time for the closing round, where everyone will have 1 minute for their closing. Joe, you have 1 minute for your closing whenever you start talking.
So as we were going back and forth, we kind of both brought up the same point that these were both roles that Clark Gable didn't really want. But at the end of the day, Clark Gable's performance, I think, is what cements Gone with the Wind and is the highlight of the movie. While with It Happened One Night, it is more of the screwball comedy story that makes it such a memorable movie. And the fact that this argument is about what is the better Clark Gable performance and not the better Clark Gable movie, I think that's what it is. Because I will concede that the better movie of the two is It Happened One Night. However, the better performance is as the visitor / Red Butler for Clark Gable, because he is able to, as I said before, live truthfully in imaginary circumstances and make you believe that he's truthfully this character, despite what he does as whether being a dick or a cuck and bad things that he does in those things as that character. It is still a performance where he is believable, and it is a deep and rich character, and that is why it is the best performance.
All right, just on nick of time. Ryan, you have 1 minute for your closing when you start talking.
See, I would almost go the reverse of you, Joe, because I would probably say that the better movie probably was Gone with the Wind. It was a better movie in scale, in scope, and its wealth of what it was able to bring to the big screen. But as far as the best Clark Gable performance, as far as the best for him that is showing his and everything that he can do, you have to go to It Happened One Night. It showed the drama, it showed the humor, it showed everything that Gable was personally capable of. Whether or not he wanted to do any of these films, whether or not he just wanted to go ahead and start sleeping with women on the side, whatever his thing was, he made a film work that shouldn't have worked. All right, you can't even remember who the co-star is. It was all about Clark Gable going ahead and winning over the princess or heiress or whatever it was as they go on their journey. All right, you can't say the same thing about Clark Gable, who pretty much is pigeonholed in Gone with the Wind as this, guy just trying to get with Scarlett. That's pretty much just it.
Time. All right, both got their closing arguments, and now it's time for the judge's side, and it's going to be, I'm starting off with me. See, this was really tough because they both had good, strong arguments, and then they kind of drifted towards their movie, whereas the question was best Clark Gable performance. Ryan brought up that he did win the Oscar for It Happened One Night. Joe also brought up that he was nominated but did not win. However, I'm going to give my point to Joe because Ryan brought up the fact that Clark Gable didn't even want to do Gone with the Wind, and Joe also tied in the fact that he didn't want to do the movie but still did a great performance that still got him nominated even though it didn't win. So my point is going to Joe because Ryan kind of just used that argument to kind of hurt himself with that. But it's not. That's just my vote. There's still 2 other judges. Ryan, what is your decision?
Both competitors brought up good arguments about both films, whether it's about accolades, whether it's about performances, whether it's about mannerisms or whatever they did to perform as their characters. But I got to say, these arguments were very educational. Learned a lot of things I didn't expect to learn, and that's always fascinating. So because of those points that were made by both competitors, this is going to sound like a record that's been played before, but I'm actually going to go ahead and give that point to Ryan in this case for some of the points that he brought up during the course of his arguments.
All right, and the final decision is going to go up to Grant. Grant, what are your thoughts, and what is your decision?
All right, well, my thoughts is, Joe, you finally woke up, mate. This is how you should have been arguing the first round. Every time you made a point, you backed it up with some sort of thing. Though I did notice you did fall back on your same thing. You said the word deep and rich character 6 times. You brought up a lot of really good points. Unfortunately, I feel that every time you brought up a good point, Ryan had something to either counter it or nullify it. And when a lot of times he made a point, you didn't distribute any of the sort of things. Never thought I would hear the word a dick and a cuck in a and thing, and then have it repeated by the opponent. Both closing arguments were really good. It's just a pity that I can tell that Joe has a lot of passion for this one. This was definitely his strongest round, but unfortunately, because he didn't address a lot of the points that Ryan made, I'm giving the points to Ryan.
All right, with that being said, and your winner, Ryan Real or Deal O'Regan, There is unfortunately no speed round today because Ryan was able to get a clean sweep out of the 3 questions. But heck, it was still a fun, great match. Both competitors did great. Let's do the interviews. Let's start off with the winner today, Ryan. Ryan, how you feel about your win? Congrats. How you feel?
Oh, I'm so happy to have this monkey off my back. Oh, you have no idea. I mean, when I originally was doing the research for this stuff, I was pining. I was trying to think because obviously some could argue that he had the better choices just right off the bat, considering the popularity of Kevin Smith and so for many people now, and the popularity of Gone with the Wind. Definitely one of the biggest movies ever. You know, adjusting for inflation, probably the biggest grossing. But I had to think about what I was really going to be passionate about, and I'm a fan of the underdog story. So to go ahead and have something like It Happened One Night be victorious for someone like Joe Dante victorious, I feel like I've done them justice in arguing this case. Joe backed up everything he could with these big things that were just coming at me like meteorites, just crashing into my head. Again, space stuff. I don't know why, but I give Joe all the credit in the world. This was your first one. This was my first one. Who knows how it was going to turn out? Thankfully, I pulled it out of wherever I had it held, and it was thrilling. Nervous and thrilling are probably the best words I would use, because I mean, banter and arguing and debate, it can always go one way or the other depending on the people. Thankfully, Joe was someone who was even keel enough that I could talk with him rather than at him. So, Joe, as far as a competitor, thank you. I appreciate your work. Who knows if we'll ever get a match again in that one day, but I look forward to it. All right.
All right. Well, congrats once again, Ryan. Now let's go to our unfortunate loser today, Joe. I mean, you did really well. Things just didn't go your way. How are you feeling about this match?
I wouldn't say I'm the unfortunate loser. It was a great match for both of us. Ryan deserves all the credit in the world because, yes, on paper, I did have the choices that, just like if someone were to say on paper, like, oh, here are these two people's choices, who's going to win this match? People would just be like, well, that guy has the stronger choices. So Ryan, and I think Ryan just being able to, it was a good back and forth, and that's what I like to see. And I do hope we have a match down the road, but I hope the next time we face each other, it isn't in a debut. I hope that it's us competing for a championship. That's when I want to see Ryan again. I want to see him with the belt, and I want to be the one taking the belt from him. That's when I want to play him again.
Okay. All right. We're good.
All right. Those are, awesome words. Maybe we'll see that one day in the future. Let's get Ryan. Let's talk to Ryan permission. Ryan, what are your thoughts on this match? How did you think this match went?
No, this match was good. It was great to see some new talent come into the ring and prove, as the movie likes to say, who will prove his worth. It was very good stuff. Good job by both guys. Look forward to seeing what they do down the line in their very, very, very young careers. And this was a good judges panel. This was a fun night, fun match. Some good questions. There are some really good questions. And as I said towards the end of one of them, I said it was very educational. So good on you guys. Good on everyone for being here. I had a good time, man. What say the rest of you guys?
All right, let's go to Grant. Grant, what are your thoughts on this match?
This was definitely a lot of fun. They gave me a lot of points. As you can see, I've got so many bloody notes because you were rapid fire with your facts, and it was. I love the questions. I think the questions have probably been some of my favorite questions. And me being competitive, being 1-0, the same as Ryan. I don't really know if I want to face Ryan because he's very good at his counter punching. So that's what I really enjoyed about this match. I think Joe was just a little bit too green with it. He brings up a lot of points. He just needs to go into a little bit more detail. So for future matches, when Joe does that, I think he's going to absolutely kill it because he brought up so many points. So
great passion too.
Oh yeah. As for me, I thought it was a great match. I mean, both guys giving a lot of information. I was taking notes myself, and it was really hard to keep track. Both just had. It could have gone either way. But we may see this match again. I would definitely look forward to seeing these two battle it out in the future, whether it be for a belt or just for another match. It'll be fun. But with that being said, this concludes another fun episode, fun match of Movie Battlegrounds. So, as for me, Mr. Carefree Richard Schwartz, as for Ryan Permisson, Greg Gregory, Ryan the Real Ordeal, Regan, and the Average Joe Harrison, we wish you good night, have a great day, feed your pets, hopefully. Have a good one.